Hey, you're watching Fat Man DD1, you dingus. Whatever he said.
This is your boy, Fat Man DD1. I'm back, bitch. I'm sorry. It's been a minute. But, other than that, we're looking good. We're looking good. Now, the room is still getting there. You guys will get a chance to see the whole thing, nothing but the thing. That's my shirt. Just laying there. So, let's go. This is your boy. Let's get it. We're talking about Marvel's new iteration to Miles Morales, which would be Thor, Miles, Thor. I don't fucking know what the fuck this is. But here it is, and from the article, it seems to be very racist. There's something wrong with why this isn't hitting and clicking with a lot of people. Also, I found out Marvel comics now are becoming much, much cheaper than they are with their old comics. I have a couple old comics here that I've been collecting just because I really enjoy old covers. I'm enjoying the way old things are looking compared to the newer stuff that's just degrading in quality. And here's the article. Fans condemn Marvel after racist Spider-Man Thor project is released. Sorry. Listen, if it's racist, we ain't fucking with it. If it's trying to be something it's not, or it's trying to be, I don't want to say over political, or it's trying to speak to an audience, or it's pandering, listen. If you are trying to pander to black people or anybody else, you the problem. I'm just saying. There's nothing you need to do is pander to me. Don't pander to me, my guy. Don't try to pander to my people. Try to make something good, and everything else will follow. The more you pander, the more you try to appeal to people. You try to like, oh, we're gonna do this and this, and we're gonna show you guys this. And no, you're gonna piss us the fuck off. You don't want that. You don't want that. No, you want there to be some type of connection with these characters. Don't try to pander. Don't try to relate too hard. Just create a character. It worked with Jane Foster back in the What If series, but that's because it had we already had a connection with her and what her story would be, and writers were feeling creative. That's why that Marvel What If series is very off to the side, but it's known to be something happening and still going to this day because the What If TV show came out and all other stuff, and now people are kind of connecting What If stuff and making What If stuff happen in actual Marvel comics. And for some reason the MCU is the 616, but it's not the 616, now it's the 919. Thanks, actress that plays Kamala Khan. You're actually a nerd and not a lying person. Kevin Feige, wagging a finger. But let's get into the article. Sorry for the talking.
In the latest installment of Marvel's What If Miles Morales series, What If Miles Morales Became Thor? Number 4 has sparked major controversy and backlash online, with fans calling out the comic book giant for racist depictions of black people and communities. The newest Guardian edition of Miles Morales sees the young Afro-Latino Spider-Man take up the helm of Thor Odinson in an edition celebrating 60 years of the friendly neighborhood web-slinger.
Okay, I have a problem when it comes to depiction of black people. What type of depiction are you gonna have, right? Now, Miles becomes Thor Odin's son, right? It's kind of one of those things that, Marvel themselves have kind of, picked on, snapped on. I gotta be honest with you. If you're inspired by Thor, and I mean inspired, then fine. Thor is one of those guys. He's one of the main characters. He is the fucking man. When it comes down to it, if you're trying to make this is Miles as Thor. Honestly, I don't like it. He got the hoodie as the Thor symbol, some weird tattoos. That's probably okay, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem okay with me. By Odin's fade is something I should never hear. But, okay. I don't know, bro. That by Odin's fade? What the fuck is going on, bro? Why are you pandering so hard? Why? Why are you pandering so hard? Damn. Okay, let's continue.
The character of Miles Morales, however, is probably most recognized from Sony's animated family adventure film, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which won the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. It starred Shamik Moore as Morales, alongside Jake Johnson, Haley Steinfeld, Mahershala Ali, John Mulaney, and Nicolas Cage. Miles Morales was created in 2011 by writer Brian Michael Bendis and
Michael Bendis tried to make the character poppin'. 2011 fans were not just having it. Marvel was doing a lot of, I think, reboots, rebrandings. At the time, it just wasn't it. They were trying to make it just wasn't it. And this is coming from a Marvel fan.
Miles Morales was created in 2011 by writer Brian Michael Bendis and Italian artist Sarah Picciolus. He was conceptualized to eventually take over the helm of Spider-Man in the Ultimate Comics following the death of that universe's Peter Parker.
Which I automatically want there to be more stories with Miles in the Ultimate Comics. I want the MCU and the Ultimate Comics to kind of come back. I want there to be separate comic book worlds where we can have separate stories, and we can do that because I don't like Miles in the main MCU world because I just get so bored of him knowing that after Peter, it's supposed to be Miles. Then Gwen gets her comics, and that's kind of like funny or iffy. There's a lot here that is just jumbled the fuck up and so annoying. I'm just saying.
Famously born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and the son of an African-American father and a Puerto Rican mother, Morales shares similar powers to Peter Parker's version of the web-shooting, wall-climbing Spider-Man.
Yes, he does.
Recently, the release of this new comic melding the two superheroes' backstories has stirred up a fair amount of controversy and critique online. What If Miles Morales Became Thor is written by Yehudi Mercado and has art by Luigi Sagria and Paco Medina, none of whom are black.
It's written by who? Who is this name? Hold on one second. Who is this? And he's, they not black either? Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people out there that have created black characters that, like, Brian Michael Bendis is a white guy, and the lady was an Italian person that created Miles, right? It wasn't a black person that did it. But if you're writing for a black character, you're try hard is what you're doing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this guy is a try hard and the person, like, creating the art are, but come on, bro. You're try hard. You're doing the most. Like, by Odin's Fade? What? What are you talking about? Why would you put that in there? Why?
Is written by Yehudi Mercado and has art by Luigi Sagria and Paco Medina, none of whom are black themselves.
When the article says none who are black themselves, listen, don't get me wrong now. I ain't gonna sound like anybody that you haven't heard before, right? I have my opinions when it comes to black artists online taking anime characters and just changing them dark without changing the color of the uniform, without changing a little bit of the hair, without also, I'm tired of dreads. I want to do this, like, I'm tired of dreads. Like, if dreads is the only thing black people can think of at this point, I'm tired of it. Like, let's go with curly afro, curly hair. Let's go with something. I'm tired of dreads. Tired of dreads. I'm tired of fucking locks. I'm done with it. It's cool as a look for art, but sometimes that's the only thing you can think of. Then black people don't have a lot of hairstyles. I'm just gonna be honest. Then we don't. If you can just think of dreads and that's it. That's it. But it's supposed to relate to a certain crowd. And that's fine. When you're writing for a black character that's supposed to be Thor, why don't you get an artist that has worked on Thor, get them to work on Miles Morales with the writing, then you can look and ask Brian Michael Bendis what he thinks of, hey, if Miles was Thor, what would you write for him? What would you create for him? What would you add for him? Michael Bendis would give you a couple of notes. Bam. Thor came out with his own comic book, Thor God of Thunder, and straight up, that comic did fire. What you can do with that is basically dissect it, go into there and see how Thor talks. See how Miles would talk. Miles could have a little hood twang, but don't fucking do this. Don't. Because now you're just you're pandering and you're not relating. If the character was relatable, I don't mean Jordan's a hoodie, I don't mean graffiti on the hammer, I don't mean none of that shit. If the character was relatable, people will fuck with it. But what you're doing, this is for me, I'm a black man. You're ODing. And you're trying to pander, you're trying to be like, oh, let's do this. Black people love this, black people like this, black people... You're trying to say what we will like. But I don't fuck with it. A certain group of black people will like this just because those are the people you're pandering to. Pathetic. I'm just saying. Pathetic.
He projecting question is part of the What If series of comics, where Marvel reimagines its heroes with alternative origins, backstories, and outcomes, each volume asking a different question of the world, adding to the ever-expanding Marvel multiverse.
Now, when it comes to that, Marvel has done it better in their older series. I have a couple of What If comics. I think Wolverine kills Hulk or whatever, and I'm collecting more What If comics because Marvel has taken just the story points of the character. What if Doctor Strange was trained by Dormammu? Beautiful. How did we get to this point? Where did the Sorcerer Supreme become the Sorcerer of Evil? How did this happen? That's a story to tell because I want to see more of that Doctor Strange, right? I want to see a story told. When it comes to the multiverse, people writing for these characters are only going to switch them. They're going to switch them extremely to the extreme. They're not going to take it and adjust it slightly and just change what happens with them, right? Oh, how did Black Panther become... Did T'Challa become Black Panther? No, he became Star-Lord. How does that happen or make sense? That's totally out of the realm. We need to find out Black Panther... T'Challa becomes a version of Killmonger. Killmonger becomes a version of T'Challa. There you go. We reverse the circles. That's how Marvel's done it for years. They slightly reverse it. And everything else kind of stays the same with just one little change. And that's kind of it, right? And we ask ourselves, how did that switch around? Shuri becomes she becomes the first style Iron Man herself. How does that happen? How does she become Iron Man? You know, how does she get into an accident and gets metal jabbed into her? How does that happen? What's the reverse, right? When Miles becoming Thor doesn't make sense. When did he become worthy to wield the hammer? How does he become worthy to wield the hammer? How does he become the adopted son of Odin? How does that happen? You know what I'm saying? This writing is like writing yourself in a fucking corner without even knowing what the fuck to say or what to put on the paper. Because fans look at it and say, you're trying here, but this writing is terrible. You got a good premise, but it's falling off and I don't want to pick it up. Get out of here.
This series of comics is also eponymous to Marvel Studios' MCU Disney Plus original, animated Phase 4 anthology series What If? Which featured Chadwick Boseman's last performance as the superhero Black Panther.
Yeah, I get that. So in other words, it's useless. What they're doing is they're basically saying, hey, we have something, but this will kind of pander to your audience on this side. And you're not even doing it out of creativity. You're doing it out of natural instinct. You're just throwing this to people saying, oh, this is what you want. For real?
This time, fans are particularly upset with certain choices made by the creators of the What If comic. The decision by writer Mercado to use the phrases by Odin's fate and Asgard is his hood has been called...
Odin's fate and Asgard's his hood. Hold on. Okay. Use the phrases by Odin's fate and Asgard is his hood. Those are weird phrases. Let's continue.
By Odin's fate and Asgard is his hood has been called out as a bad imitation of Black African American vernacular English. Similarly, the artist's choices to show romanticized yet stereotypical depictions of minority cultures, communities, and graffitied urban living have been said to perpetuate racist archetypes.
Now, this person is probably not trying to be racist. What they're probably trying to do is relate to more what's happening in, like, the city. You come to... I live in the Bronx. The Bronx has a lot of graffiti. There's a lot of art here. Brooklyn has a lot of street art. There's areas in Brooklyn that has tons and tons of graffiti, tons and tons of art. A lot of things are not necessarily stereotypical. There are areas that reflect the city, the living, the agriculture, the art, the food. Now, this person's probably not trying to be racist, but what they are trying to do is probably relate. And their relating and similarities might come out as nigga, that's racist. And I don't want to say that. I don't want to say nigga, that's racist. But I can say what you're doing is you're trying to reflect upon everybody what's happening, and you're trying to tell and show people, like, hey, Asgard is his hood. Okay, that's stupid. I wouldn't have said that. I was like, Asgard is my neighborhood. You know, this is kind of where I live, where I grew up. That's fine. That makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're talking about Miles Morales, he has good vernacular. He has a good vocabulary. The kid can express himself. But he does have some hood twang. He can speak hood. He can do this. He can do that. You know what I'm saying? That's Miles. But when there's certain things that you're trying to urban living, like, you know, there's the hoods out here that are kind of clean. Some are dirty. Some are crazy. Some are wild. Some look like you don't want to be there. I don't think this person is trying to be racist, but they're trying to relate a little too much, which is looking bad.
Responding to this controversy, Twitter user @BorePosting heavily criticized the writer, saying, Miles Morales as Urban Thor makes me want comics etc. to go back to being outwardly racist. Apparently the writer is doubling down against criticisms, saying that Miles Morales was invented by a white guy, which then I guess makes gross stereotypes and caricatures of black and brown people and their communities okay because a white dude says so.
Now, yes, Miles created by a white dude. Doesn't mean anything. Even if it was created by Brian Michael Bendis, there's a reason why it was created. Because he wanted something fresh and new. Black Spider-Man. Hold on a minute. Give me a second. I'm fine with that. And I don't like when people's like go back to outright racism. Like, calm down. Calm down. Extreme Twitter questions and criticism is fine, right? We can criticize something. And that's perfectly fine. Now, there's a difference from me. I'm a critic. I'm literally a critic. I can criticize something because I've watched enough of it to criticize it. All the Marvel TV shows, I've criticized. Have I outright criticized them online? No, but that doesn't make me less of a critic than anybody else because I'm not verbally writing it down, verbally saying nothing. Hell no. I'm expected by viewers to maybe review something, criticize something, or watch something. Because they might want my opinion on it. It's because, what do you think of this? And I can give my honest opinion. I've watched a lot of movies and TV shows since I've been little. So I can express to you why I believe it isn't racist to create a black character. What is racist and outright pandering is when you try to talk like you're black. You try to make the character seem that they're black, but also make it cringe. You try to add little things in and add little sayings that black people would say, but you're not from there and you're not taking notes from somebody else that could say, actually, Miles has a better vernacular. This is what he would say. This is what he would do. You didn't ask Brian Michael Bendis how to change up Miles for Thor because he created the character. That's perfectly fine. Doesn't matter if it's made by a white dude. It's how the character was portrayed from Bendis and how we've seen the character evolutionize from being this wimpy-ass kid to his uncle being a dickhead to now loving him because the Spider-Man, Spider-Verse made him even much lovable, made him better, gave him some swagger, made him fumble, made him clumsy, made him seem realistic. Into the Spider-Verse did one thing the comics could never do. They made him clumsy. They made him fumble. They made him make mistakes. They made him more human and relatable because the comics never projected that relatability. It just is what it is. Some people say, oh, it's in there. Bitch, show me where. Because the movie did a better job. The animated Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man, did a good job of showing us Miles and how he was not ready to be Spider-Man or the Spider-Man of that world. And let's be honest, it did the same thing with Gwen. It did the same thing with Noir, Penny Parker. You can see where Into the Spider-Verse took this character, made him unsure of himself, unready, not confident, and then took a chance and pushed him into more of a light. So you see the humanity, you see the humiliation, you see the defeat, you see the growth, you see the love, and you see where that comes from. The movie did a better job than the comic because the writing, the torture, the craziness, there's a lot there. Shit, eventually Miles loses his mom and his dad, and he's orphaned like Peter. It's fucked up. And his uncle, I didn't even think his uncle is dead. So his whole fucking family eventually dies in the comics. So at this point, Miles is nobody. When you're writing for a character and turning him different, you need to look at what this character would be under the range of Thor and Odin's actual adopted son compared to Asgard being on Earth. You gotta make that make sense. And you have to have good writing. You can't bullshit. Even if the character was created and written for a white dude that made it, that white dude knows the character. You're using hood slang and you're not even understanding the context of the slang and how the use of that slang is going to work in a comic and how other people are going to look at that and be like, well, that's slang, but it's not working in this comic. The fuck?
While criticizing the writer, @BorePosting also commented on the idea of wokeness. Ultimately, there is a lot to be said about inclusivity and wokeness in the workplace and media, and I have my criticisms when both are applied performatively, especially the latter. But diversity is unequivocally good if it means not putting the words by Odin's fade to ink and paper.
Now, diversity does make sense if it's naturally created, right? People didn't like Miles because he was supposed to be the new Peter Parker and not just the black Peter Parker. He was supposed to be the replacement, right? Donald Glover for Spider-Man was supposed to be Donald Glover for Miles. And I really wanted to see Glover as Miles because at that time, in his younger years, that would have been perfect if Marvel was ready to take that chance. But I said this too a long time ago. Marvel hasn't focused on Peter Parker's story. Marvel has never done it right. I mean Marvel and I mean Sony. And No Way Home was kind of still Marvel not finishing Peter Parker's story. Now that they finally got him out of being Iron Spider-Man and all that shit, you really have to take into consideration the character's growth. Miles was never liked by a lot of fans. No matter what people say, Miles was never liked by the mainstream or by even Marvel Comics because they moved him to a side. They just like, fuck this guy. Let's continue.
User @EvenRedScomics also added to the conversation, my issue with that Miles Morales Thor What If story is that it really needed a black writer.
Yes.
Creating a new Asgard mythology for Thor Miles is a really cool concept that could really honor all aspects of Miles' Afro-Latino culture, but it stumbles and feels awkward sometimes.
That makes sense. If you want to write Miles' Afro-Latino culture, you could have been like, his mother is an Asgardian, or his mom and dad both came from Asgard. His dad came from the lineage of Odin. His mom was a witch, trained by Hera. You could have had an entire story built around them. Mom came from Asgard, or dad was descendant from Odin, but more of like a bastard son. You know what I'm saying? Thor, caring for his other brother, Loki not loving him. And then you have Uncle Aaron, who was more of his adopted uncle. It's like, they're not really brothers, but, they had the same mom. They lived in the same world. Not Asgard, but Earth. You could have had a beautiful story right then and there. Miles finding out he becomes worthy because he is a descendant through Thor to Odin. And then Thor throws him the hammer and says, I'm done being Thor. I'm going to live my life with Jane Foster. It's your turn. Now, let's see if you can pick up the hammer. Miles eventually picks up the hammer, finds out he's worthy, and then he becomes Thor of that world. Perfect. You get a black writer or a writer that seems to know their shit. Because you don't have to just be black. You don't have to use slang to connect with a character, is what I'm saying. There you go. You could be black, but also able to draw out the story, the uniqueness of Miles and how being Thor in the modern day and growing up in Brooklyn is kind of hard now because he's no longer Spider-Man. He took the chance on being related to a god, fictional god, and then now has the chance to become Thor. Bro, I'm writing your fucking story. Let's go.
The page showing the contentious Miles as Thor walking around his hood of Asgard, arms spread wide to welcome praise from his adoring urban public, has received quite a few critique, particularly in the way living in the ghetto is portrayed and romanticized by the creators at Marvel.
Now, I live in the hood, right? And I'm from here, and a lot of people do love their blocks. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, praising and loving the ghetto. Shut the fuck up. You don't live here, I do. This is okay. A lot of niggas do get a lot of love when they go back to their hoods. A lot of people get a lot of love when they go back to the neighborhoods because you have friends and family. You build communities there. It's not just a place you live. Sometimes there is a stable community out there. And sometimes the community, wherever you live, Dykeman, you live in Soho, you live somewhere in Brooklyn, you live somewhere in Queens. Everyone has their own community. You live in Grand Street, where in Chinatown, you have your community of people. Now, everyone has their own hood. Miles' hood and the people around him, his community, are Asgardians, the people that live there. It's not bad. That's not a bad take, any agreements. But some people will disagree. Like this lady here.
Gingy on Twitter criticized this portrayal, saying, "The more I see that image of Thor Miles Morales welcoming Hood Asgard, the angrier I get, because of how tone-deaf it is."
Now, yes, Hood Asgard may sound crazy. Is it tone deaf? Probably, because it's written by a white guy. Is it fucking stupid? No. Asgardians could have came to Earth to live here. They probably wanted to stop fighting. They probably wanted to enjoy peace and time. And, they probably made his hood better. Who knows? I don't know, because a lot of Brooklyn neighborhoods are crazy. A lot of Bronx neighborhoods are extremely wild. So at this point, it's not tone deaf. The more it is, you don't have all the information. You know what I'm saying? Like, if the guy is from New York and he's able to kind of analyze it from my perspective, he has a sense of community. Cool. Oh, Miles, I'm back in my neighborhood. I have a sense of community here. And once Miles would have been like, the sense of community I have here is much different than any part I've been in the world as an Avenger. That would have been beautiful.
Living in the ghetto isn't fun. Graffiti isn't street art or murals.
Whoa, time out. Some people live in the hood and it's fine and they're okay, but sometimes it's dangerous, and that's true. Graffiti is street art. Brooklyn will tell you otherwise. There's a lot of graffiti in Brooklyn. If this is in Brooklyn and Miles from Brooklyn, from Asgard, Brooklyn, that's art to them. That's art to me too. There's artists out there that create beautifully. Banksy was a graffiti street artist. The fuck are you talking about? Like, that nigga was making beautiful things with graffiti art. Murals are beautiful art. This lady, and by the look of it, she's black, I guess, but she don't know shit. And I just put that out there because you're ignorant. I'm just gonna let that be known. That's ignorance.
It's dark, dangerous, violent urban decay. And Marvel thinks BLK people like that. It's a testament to how deeply out of touch Marvel is showing themselves to be, that another Twitter user, Megan D, noticed the unfortunate rhyme scheme. Is that supposed to be a FING rap?
I don't think it was a rhyme scheme. Probably might have been a bad rhyme scheme.
Yes, Miles Morales is likely rapping for all the 5 realms. Asgard is his hood for Miles. You can see he's just that good. But he is low-key when he wants to be name on marquees like his uncle Loki. Yes, they rhymed low-key with Loki.
Okay.
Adoctoy1 pointed out, "I know everyone is talking about Asgard as his hood and by Odin's fate in the Miles Morales Thor comic, but let's not ignore that the writer has him say all eyes on me because it's also the name of a rap album."
True.
The fact that this comic passed through multiple eyes at Marvel, with no questions raised, from conception, design, research, and production, all the way through to publication, is frankly quite baffling. With how beloved and popular the two superhero franchises of Spider-Man and Thor are, it seems like Marvel has missed quite the mark on attempting to merge these two properties.
Marvel has basically made a decision to create this comic and not really speak to anyone that is black. And honestly, now a lot of people would say, to me, I don't necessarily care if you black or not. But when it comes to Miles, I actually do understand when it comes to a character like Miles. He's from Brooklyn. He lives in a neighborhood. He's from here. Dad's a cop. Mom's a nurse. He has a 2-household income. You gotta take into consideration the feats and lengths it would go for a character like Miles not to get the representation and respect he deserves, especially if you change him to be Thor. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Marvel is tone deaf here. I'm saying Marvel has a good idea, but it's not laid out. It's kind of... What the fuck is that? That's what it is. It's a fucking up and down roller coaster of why did you say this and why is this here? Because it's pandering. It's spewing. And from a black man, you can tell it's pandering and spewing. You're not talking to me. You're talking to what you believe black people want to hear, and that's bad. You need to take that shit and get it the fuck out of here. Because you're doing the most. Marvel, cut it out. Cut the shit. And fucking replay this. Because you are fucking up. It's like Shang-Chi becomes the Iron Fist. If you want Shang-Chi to become the Iron Fist, what do? You create a story where Shang-Chi is on the plane that Danny Rand is on, and they both fight for superiority to become the Iron Fist, and he defeats Danny Rand. Danny Rand becomes the evil Iron Fist, and Shang-Chi becomes the Iron Fist. That's a beautiful story. Luke Cage being a War Machine would be fucking amazing. He actually takes the place of Rhodey after Rhodey gets seriously hurt or, God forbid, whatever, becomes more good pals with Iron Man, just like Rhodey, but now he has invulnerable fucking skin, but he also can't fight or fly. Fucking Iron Man gives him a suit, boom, he's the new War Machine. I'm just throwing things out there to make you motherfuckers see why even the Kingpin becoming, I don't know, diamonds. The Kingpin becomes a mutant. Just like Emma Frost's ability to create his body over diamond, gold, whatever, right? Something. You look at a character, you can clearly fucking see they can be better than what you put in front of people. But regardless of that, I think Marvel's fucking up with this. And tell me what you think in the comments below. You can read the article without my commentary. This is your boy Fat. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell icon to be notified. For me to you, remember to never give up, never surrender, to keep on grinding. And we are almost at 1,000. Click that subscribe button. Click that motherfucking button. Do it for me. Do it for me. You know what I'm saying? Do it for me. 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 Ow. Right on my toe.
Shit. Getting been on drum. You little niggas gonna stop acting like my shit ain't the grill. Some of you niggas get your front teeth for grills. And I ain't talking about the contract.
Ain't loving these fake hoes. Room smelling like 8 switches. Room service like 2K. NBA, I'm ballin', nigga. All them niggas falling like autumn, nigga. Talking shit, I saw them niggas. Now they daughter want a picture. Rough, ain't it? Fuck famous.
Yeah,
niggas too real, got the most haters. Wrote a story so Stephen Curry. How it feel to be golden.